The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became dazzling white, such as no fuller on earth could bleach them. Then Elijah appeared to them along with Moses, and they were conversing with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, "Rabbi, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He hardly knew what to say. They were so terrified. Then a cloud came, casting a shadow over them. From the cloud came a voice, "This is my beloved Son. Listen to him." Suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone but Jesus alone with them. As they were coming down from the mountain, he charged them not to relate what they had seen to anyone except when the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves, questioning what rising from the dead meant. The Gospel of the Lord. Our gospel on the second Sunday of Lent is from Mark chapter 9, verses 2 through 10 on the Transfiguration. So we left Jesus where last weekend, and last Sunday he was in the desert, and he came out of the desert. But this is not just during Lent, but the Gospels continue to build towards a goal. Here, of course, during Lent, the goal is Easter, and the rest of the year it's Christmas. But nonetheless, even in ordinary time, we're still reliving that life of Christ, the life of Christ, the life of Christ. We keep looking at the life of Jesus Christ. Only different seasons, there's different parts of the life of Christ that are more emphasized than others. And so then here in Lent, of course, we're getting towards the suffering, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. But last weekend, there was a significant point in this temptation in the desert with Jesus. He's victorious over Satan in the desert. And of course, this Sunday's Transfiguration of Jesus, it shows us the ultimate, final, and definitive victory over Satan. And Jesus shows them, Peter, James, and John anyway, these 3 apostles, as an early sign of hope. He shows them his transfigured glory. Why is that important to have that sign of hope? Well, because it's going to be needed in the face of the coming passion, crucifixion, and death of Jesus. So they're going to watch the Lord suffer. They're going to watch him be crucified, and they're going to watch him die. All right, and that is going to shake their faith in everything that the Lord has taught and told them. And so the Transfiguration of Jesus is given to these privileged disciples, Peter, James, and John, to save them from what's called or known as the scandal of the cross. The scandal of the cross is Jesus crucified. So this scandal of the cross, it will appear as the complete end of Jesus, the complete end of the Messiah, the complete end of, it's just another Messiah sighting, it's not the real one. It's going to be the end of everything to them. It will shake their faith to complete utter disbelief once they see Jesus crucified. And Jesus knows this. And so he is preparing at least these 3 who will at that time of the crucifixion, who have already seen his transfiguration and that glory. So they will have no doubt, even though they're staring at a dead Jesus on a cross, they will have no doubt who he really is and how he cannot be defeated, not even by death. And so that's one of the major reasons that these 3 disciples are given this privilege. They will have prominent roles in the early church. And they will need to have their faith fortified by this experience in order to lead others on the road of discipleship, because others, and so many others at the time, will see Jesus crucified. But that's not too new to us in the sense that we can relate to that in that we all experience sometimes, at times, frequently, a loss of hope. Is Jesus still here with us when things like pandemics happen? Is Jesus still Lord? Have we lost hope? Have we given up? All right, that's what we're faced with in a practical sense. And so we can relate to these three disciples in that sense, is that they know who Jesus is. Have we ever learned who Jesus was? Has our faith ever truly been fortified and strengthened for those experiences of doubt that lie ahead in our lives? And that's where faith becomes so important for us, so that in the face of doubt, we can still keep believing that Jesus is Lord, and that he is here with us, and that he is going to be helping us through it all. And so the transfiguration of Jesus, which was experienced by all three disciples, seeing Jesus as he really is, it's his human nature. Remember, that's that weak human nature, the same human nature we have, which was victorious over Satan in the desert last weekend. It's now suffused with this divine glory. It's the glory that he has from before he was incarnate. And so for a brief moment in time, Jesus' humanity was radiating his majestic, glistening glory, just as it will be at his second coming, and just as it will be for us after our own resurrection and final victory over Satan. You may recall, the righteous will shine with God's glory. This is testified in Scripture in Daniel 12:3, Wisdom 3:7, and Matthew 13:43. So what these three disciples experience, that's set for us too. We're going to have a complete share in this amazing divine glory, that we will be transfigured. Okay, so the resurrection will gain us this glory of God for ourselves. So this humanity of Jesus radiating the majesty of the Son of God, it's so dazzling for Peter that he wants to keep this moment as long as he can. That's one interpretation. I mean, you start putting these things together. He's terrified. He wants to stay there. He wants to build 3 tents. He hardly knew what to say, but he's confused in that sense. And maybe he might want to stay there. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't know what to do. I mean, how would we react if we suddenly were seeing an ethereal or divine being before us? How would we react? But Peter, he has just encountered all three persons of the Trinity. They're all there. Father's voice, the Son, Spirit is there. He's understandably overwhelmed and enthusiastic, as any of us would be, at the same time where, you get really, really excited. You get excited and you're almost afraid at the same time. It's kind of like when I have to preach a gospel. Kind of excited and afraid at the same time. Okay? So it's like there's all this energy, and your enthusiasm is there, and you're excited, but you're not sure how to channel that to be effective. And so Peter, they use the word terrified. Mark uses the word terrified for the experience of Peter, James, and John, who are experiencing God in his powerful, majestic form. And still, we have to recall, this is all happening in the context of Peter not quite yet recovering from the news about a suffering Messiah. It was just 6 days ago, in the context of the gospel, 6 days ago when Jesus revealed to all the disciples that the Messiah must suffer and be killed in Jerusalem. Just 6 days ago. Okay, so Peter, he doesn't know what to think right now. Is this it? Is Israel coming back? Is this it? Are we done? Or is it? So let's just stay here then. Or then he goes away and it's all over. And so he's not sure what to think. He was just told 6 days ago. He still has not recovered from this. They scorn this prediction of Jesus. The Son of Man's going to be handed over. He's going to suffer and die. He's going to be raised on the third day. They didn't like to hear that. And so, but we have to realize that it is only through the cross that Jesus will achieve his glory. There's only one way for Jesus to get his glory back at this point, and that's through the cross. And oh, by the way, that's how it is for us too. How do we achieve our glory? Through the cross. We have to endure a death. We have to suffer a death, all right, so that we can gain the glory that awaits us. And still, what really did the disciples experience? This is where we get to the different interpretations. What exactly did happen in this gospel? Is this just Mark's high context literature again? That's kind of like we're left to fill in the blank and kind of assume or write in what really happened? You know? Is this a realistic account? And so scholars believe that a simple explanation for the Transfiguration was an experience of an alternate reality or altered state of consciousness. Not those altered state of consciousness where you take, LSD or something and you see purple donkeys floating around and clowns and stuff. And not those kinds of transcendental experiences. That's a perversion of reality. No, there's these things known as altered states of consciousness. Okay? An altered state of consciousness, an alternate reality. This, we have to get into anthropology here for a moment. Anthropology, you all know what anthropology is, right? Okay, so anthropologists note that such experiences are universal human phenomena. Universal human phenomena, alternate realities or experiences of altered states of consciousness. And it's experienced by in a wide variety of forms by all human beings. We all have this going on. We might not think of it this way. Okay, so in fact, they say that 90% of 488 societies from all parts of the world routinely had this kind of alternate reality or altered state of consciousness experience. And according to one anthropologist, Erica Bourguignon, she quotes, societies which do not utilize these states are historical exceptions to be explained rather than the vast majority of societies that do use these states. Okay, so note that the words utilize and use indicate that people at will can enter into an altered state of consciousness. How do Christians usually enter into an altered state of consciousness? Prayer. We don't think of it that way, though, do we? We usually think prayer is just me petitioning God and asking for things I need. That's our usual knee-jerk response. But we're trying to access the divine. Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. So, secondly, this anthropologist, she says, saying that altered states of consciousness are normal. Normal. So the question is begged, why do we not have these kinds of alternate reality or altered states of consciousness experiences frequently ourselves in our society? And the answer is a need for control. A need for control. So additionally, a lack of prayer, a lack of quiet, a lack of self-reflective meditation, along with too many audio-visual inputs and distractions that block God. Only in the quietness of the absence of distractions will we be able to develop this normal part of the human being that can access God in a very real manner, so that we can actually do what the Father says. Listen to my son. Now, physician and anthropologist Arthur Kleinman observes that the modern secular West has been particularly effective in blocking access to the dimension of the self that accesses such alternate reality experiences or altered states of consciousness. So the human potential is still there and can be developed, though we, scientifically oriented Westerners, we seem fearful of anything over which we cannot exert complete control, generally speaking. So for this dimension of ourselves to be developed, we must have a real faith that exercises itself in letting go, in trust in God, in flexible goal setting, in acceptance, complete surrender, a Marian receptivity, and we most certainly need to rid ourselves of distractions and misinformation. Our "I'll believe it when I see it" attitude blocks faith. And it blocks the ability for us to have these alternate realities or altered states of consciousness where we can speak to Jesus face to face, or sit with the Virgin Mary, or take a walk and talk with our guardian angels, or interact in conversation with any of the heavenly beings, or speak to a relative who has died and gone before us. They're all alive, and they're all around us. So encounters with God or the heavens are possible, but our disordered need for control and our lack of self-reflective quiet are obstacles to them. Alternate realities with God are clearly remembered and experienced as transformative. We remember these things. I told you before that I've had these experiences, of course, in prayer. Okay? The memorable ones I remember, Jesus appearing to me as a 10-year-old boy, about that age. I remember Mary appearing to me as an 8-year-old girl with blonde curly hair. I have a different understanding of Our Lady because she's revealed herself to me. And these experiences go on and on. I've seen Jesus crowned. I've seen the devil appear to me as Jesus crowned with thorns. Okay, these are regular experiences we should all be having. We should all be able to access our God very clearly. And so this, of course, this experience that these three disciples have, well, how did this really happen? Well, they're kind of being led up a mountain, and it's like all of a sudden were they like looking at the ground to make sure they don't trip and fall, and all of a sudden they looked up and Jesus is glowing, or were they all sitting there already in prayer? Usually when they go up to a high mountain, they pray. Who knows how it happened? We don't know how. We are left to fill in the blank somewhere. But the most plausible explanation for this account is this altered state of consciousness, which is supposed to be very common for us. But we are afraid to allow these things to happen to us. We're afraid. We have this need for control. We don't want to let go of things. But they are remembered. These alternate realities with God, they're clearly remembered and experienced as transformative. They are different because of them. Peter, James, and John, they have the transfiguration etched into their memory. That was transformative for them. It strengthened their faith. It gave them hope. It even enlightened them to the absolute truth, who Jesus Christ is. And as they stare at him crucified and they watch him die, they maintain that faith and hope, and it's as if they're looking at that going, this is no big deal. We're going to build a church, like he said. They had this absolute confidence in what they saw. They believed once and for all that Jesus is divine and he lives forever. And that's the truth we want to live out of too. Their experience left them with that unshakable hope and faith, as St. Paul says in the second reading in Romans chapter 8, that God is for us and nothing can stand against us. And he who did not withhold his beloved Son, will he not give us everything else besides? Absolutely he will. God is a generous giver. Neither disease or tyranny can win. Nothing can stand against us. We are valued, we are chosen, and we are fought for by God himself.